Calaroga Shark Media.
The events of Christmas Day 800 transformed the practical arrangements between Pope Leo III and Charlemagne into a formal new order that would define European civilization for the next millennium. What began as a ceremony to consecrate Charlemagne's son as king of the Franks became instead the moment when the Western Roman Empire was reborn under papal authority. The ceremony began innocuously enough, with a large gathering in St. Peter's Basilica. However, as Charlemagne rose from prayer at the high altar, Pope Leo suddenly placed a golden crown upon his head. The assembled Romans immediately acclaimed him as Augustus and Emperor, while Leo prostrated himself before the newly crowned ruler, in the manner of ancient princes. In that moment, the wounded pope who had fled Rome just over a year earlier had become the maker of emperors. This is White Smoke, Episode 25. The Crown. Today, we explore how Leo transformed his greatest vulnerability into unprecedented strength, creating political precedents that would endure for 1,000 years. The ceremony's spontaneous appearance concealed careful preparation. Leo had orchestrated every element to maximize symbolic impact while establishing crucial precedents for future papal-imperial relations. By crowning Charlemagne without prior consultation, Leo asserted the papal prerogative to bestow imperial dignity. By receiving the acclamation of the Roman people, Charlemagne gained traditional legitimation for his new title. The coronation represented a masterpiece of papal political theatre, explains Dr. Walter Ullmann in his analysis of medieval papal theory. Leo simultaneously solved his immediate security needs while establishing the constitutional principle that imperial authority derived from papal conferral. This single act transformed papal weakness into unprecedented strength. The theological implications were equally significant. By reviving Western imperial authority under papal auspices, Leo asserted the Church's independence from Byzantine imperial control while creating a Christian empire explicitly subordinate to spiritual authority. The ceremony declared that earthly power found its legitimacy through ecclesiastical sanction. Yet the coronation also created immediate problems. Charlemagne himself may have been surprised by Leo's action, as his biographer Einhard later claimed. Accepting imperial dignity without objection violated diplomatic protocol and could be seen as presumptuous. Some historians suggest Charlemagne's reported displeasure was genuine, others that it was diplomatic fiction designed to minimize offense to Constantinople. The Byzantine reaction was predictably hostile. Empress Irene, already struggling to maintain her controversial rule as the first woman to hold imperial authority independently, viewed Charlemagne's coronation as usurpation of her rightful position. The ceremony effectively declared the Byzantine Empire's illegitimacy while asserting Western independence from Eastern control. The coronation permanently divided the Christian Roman Empire into competing Western and Eastern spheres, observes Professor Noble. While both sides occasionally discussed reunion, the practical separation established on Christmas Day 800 would endure for centuries, contributing ultimately to the schism between Catholic and Orthodox Christianity. The immediate beneficiary of the coronation was Pope Leo himself. The ceremony transformed him from a vulnerable refugee, dependent on foreign protection, into the maker of emperors, the authority who could bestow or withdraw the highest dignity in Christendom. This transformation secured his position against remaining Roman opposition while establishing papal claims to supremacy over temporal authority. The imperial coronation of 800 established patterns that would define European politics for the next 1,000 years. The principle that papal authority could create and legitimize imperial power became a cornerstone of medieval political theory, invoked by countless popes in their struggles with emperors, kings, and secular authorities. However, the relationship between crown and cross proved more complex than Leo might have anticipated. While the coronation established papal prerogatives to bestow imperial dignity, it also created expectations of imperial protection and involvement in church affairs that would generate centuries of conflict. Charlemagne's own approach to church-state relations revealed these tensions. Though grateful for his coronation and respectful toward Leo personally, he maintained firm control over ecclesiastical appointments, church reform, and doctrinal disputes within his territories. His concept of Christian empire envisioned the emperor as God's vice-regent on earth, responsible for both temporal and spiritual welfare of his subjects. Charlemagne's imperial ideology integrated secular and religious authority under imperial control, explains Dr. Rosamund McKitterick. While acknowledging papal dignity in ceremonial matters, he reserved practical governance of the church to imperial authority. This arrangement satisfied immediate needs, but contained seeds of future conflicts over the proper relationship between spiritual and temporal power. These tensions emerged clearly in theological disputes like the Filioque controversy, where Charlemagne's theologians urged addition of Latin phrases to the Nicene Creed, while Leo counseled restraint to avoid offending Eastern churches. Leo's position reflected his desire to maintain church unity, while Charlemagne's reflected his commitment to doctrinal clarity within his territories. The coronation also established the principle that imperial dignity required papal conferral, creating a powerful tool for future papal diplomacy. Subsequent popes would leverage this precedent to influence imperial succession, punish rebellious rulers, and assert spiritual supremacy over temporal authority. Yet the precedent cut both ways. By making imperial power dependent on papal blessing, the coronation also made papal security dependent on imperial protection. Future popes would discover that their authority to make emperors came with corresponding vulnerability to imperial pressure and intervention.
What if everything you've been taught about happiness is wrong? We chase careers, approval, more stuff, hoping it'll finally make us feel fulfilled, but it never sticks. What if happiness isn't out there, but already inside you, just waiting to be unlocked? Discover the book, The Happiness Experiment. Every person has a unique happiness type, and when you understand yours, everything shifts. You'll stop chasing and start creating joy on your own terms. Discover your happiness type with a free happiness type assessment. Go to myhappinnesstype.com. That's myhappinnesstype.com. It takes just a minute and it might change your life. Then grab your copy of The Happiness Experiment at Books A Million. This isn't just a book, it's a practical framework, a journey inward. It's a tool to help you reconnect with the happiness that's been waiting inside you all along. Pick up The Happiness Experiment and start your happiness experiment today.
When Charlemagne died in 814, Leo lost his primary protector and faced renewed opposition from Roman aristocratic families who had never accepted his authority. The conspiracy that emerged sought to remove him through the same violent methods attempted 15 years earlier. This time, however, Leo acted preemptively. Learning of the plot before it could be executed, he ordered the arrest and execution of the principal conspirators. This decisive action, markedly different from his earlier flight from Rome, demonstrated how thoroughly the imperial alliance had transformed papal authority and confidence. Leo's willingness to use capital punishment against fellow Romans revealed the extent of his institutional transformation. The vulnerable refugee who had fled across the Alps in 799 had become a ruler willing to execute subjects to maintain power. This evolution reflected broader changes in papal self-understanding and practical authority. Leo's execution of the conspirators marked a watershed in papal governance, explains Dr. Noble. Previous popes had generally avoided capital punishment, relying instead on excommunication and exile. Leo's use of state violence demonstrated how fully he had embraced the imperial alliance and its implications for papal authority. Yet this decisive action came with costs. Leo's harsh treatment of opposition eliminated immediate threats but reinforced perceptions of papal dependence on foreign power and betrayal of traditional Roman values. The executions solved tactical problems while deepening strategic divisions between the papacy and Roman society. Leo died in 816, shortly after dealing with this final conspiracy. His 21-year reign had fundamentally transformed the papal office from a regional religious position into a European political authority capable of creating and legitimizing imperial power. The institutional changes Leo initiated would far outlast his personal reign. The precedent of papal imperial coronation would be invoked countless times over the following centuries, as popes crowned emperors from Otto I to Napoleon Bonaparte. The principle of papal supremacy over temporal authority, established through Leo's coronation of Charlemagne, would become a central element of medieval political theory. More immediately, Leo's transformation of papal weakness into strength through alliance with Frankish power established a template for papal diplomacy that would be repeatedly employed. Future popes facing local opposition or external threats would look to powerful secular allies for protection, creating the complex web of alliances and dependencies that characterized medieval church-state relations. Leo's reign demonstrated both the possibilities and limitations of papal political authority, observes Professor McKitterick. His success in transforming personal vulnerability into institutional strength showed the potential for creative papal diplomacy. Yet his dependence on imperial protection revealed the constraints that would continue to limit papal independence even at the height of medieval papal power. The events of Leo's papacy also established the geographic and cultural orientation that would characterize the medieval papacy. By aligning definitively with Frankish rather than Byzantine power, Leo oriented the papacy toward Northern European rather than Mediterranean civilization. This choice would have profound implications for the development of Western Christianity and European culture. The papal alliance with Charlemagne accelerated the separation between Eastern and Western Christianity that would culminate in the Great Schism of 1054. Leo's coronation of a rival emperor effectively declared Byzantine religious and political authority illegitimate, making reunion increasingly difficult despite periodic negotiations. Yet within Western Europe, the precedent of papal imperial coronation would become a fundamental element of political legitimacy. The Holy Roman Empire created by Leo's Christmas coronation would endure until 1806, providing a constitutional framework that influenced European development for a millennium. By the early 9th century, the transformation of the papal office was complete. From persecuted religious leaders, the popes had become imperial partners. From regional Italian bishops, they had become European political authorities. From vulnerable targets of local violence, they had become makers of emperors and shapers of civilizations. This transformation came with costs as well as benefits. The papal involvement in temporal affairs that Leo pioneered would generate centuries of conflicts with secular authorities, internal church reform movements, and theological disputes about the proper relationship between spiritual and worldly power. Yet the fundamental achievement remained. Through creative diplomacy, strategic alliances, and willingness to embrace new possibilities, the post-Roman papacy had not merely survived the collapse of the imperial framework within which it developed, but had created a new framework in which it could exercise even greater authority. Leo III's journey from victim of street violence to maker of emperors represents one of history's most dramatic reversals of fortune. His reign demonstrated both the fragility and resilience of institutional authority, showing how apparent weakness could be transformed into unprecedented strength through skillful political maneuvering and strategic alliances. The crown and cross that came together on Christmas Day 800 would remain intertwined for centuries to come, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in conflict, but always in recognition that the union Leo forged had fundamentally altered the nature of both spiritual and temporal authority in Western civilization. White Smoke is a production of Calaroga Shark Media, portions of which were made with the help of AI narration.
There's always something brewing behind palace walls, whether it's Prince Harry and Meghan Markle making headlines from afar, or Prince William and Princess Catherine quietly preparing for the future throne. I'm Mark Francis, and on Palace Intrigue, we cover every twist, turn, whisper, and wink. From royal drama to daily gossip, follow Palace Intrigue wherever you get your podcasts.
You can call me James. I spent 23 years designing aircraft that officially don't exist for agencies you think TV made up. Until I started asking the wrong questions. Navy ships are recording objects moving at impossible speeds. Infrastructure is failing in coordinated patterns. The moon looks smaller than it did 10 years ago. None of this is a coincidence. The official explanations don't add up. This is Paranormal Aliens, where we connect the dots they don't want connected. If you're hearing this, you know where to get podcasts. Follow Paranormal Aliens. New episodes weekly until they shut me down.